Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Fandemic. This week we are going to be looking at the early Hall of Fame inductee list. We're going to be looking at some news, we're going to look at past games, we're going to preview what's coming up, all that and more right here on the Football Fandemic. All right, Josh, you probably noticed, and anybody online probably noticed, I did not take a drink of my coffee right after I got done talking. That was on purpose.
very intentional.
Very intentional, breaking the tick right now. But now that I said that, I'm going to take one here in just a moment. Hey, Josh, it's good to be back here again today. We're going to be talking some football, some Hall of Fame. The first list of finalists was released, I think 25, right, this time?
Yep, down to 25, and then they'll cut it down to 15. But a lot of good players going to have their chance to make it into Canton.
So I guess we'll talk about this in a minute. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the big news, the big news that's happened this week, which isn't terribly big, but it's something. The Jets. It's funny to me. How many games have the Jets won this year? 2, 3?
I think 3. Yep, 3.
And yet it feels like every week they're in the news for something. Every week something's going on. Aaron Rodgers says this. Oh, this head coach was fired. Oh, they traded for this player. Oh, and now this week they fired their GM. Was it Joe Douglas? Is that who was their GM?
It is Joe Douglas, and he was a part of the Philadelphia Eagles front office that won a Super Bowl, and they were expecting him to come and be the savior of the New York Jets. And like, granted, he had a couple, like that one draft class where he got Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, and I think there was one other first they got that all have turned out to be pretty good. That has been good. Like, the idea of getting Aaron Rodgers over there seemed good.
Yeah, everybody was stoked. And Davante Adams, yeah.
So like, he's made good moves, but like, man, there's just something in the air, I guess, over in New Jersey that has caused both of those New York teams to just be absolute disaster classes right now.
So the last time the Jets were good, I mean, let's not go all the way back to Super Bowl 3. When was the last time they were like decent? I know they haven't been like great, but would it have been like, what's his face? The butt fumble guy.
Yeah, I would say that was probably like the turning point that sent them back to this sort of like cursed position of football, because like in the mid 2000s, the late 90s, like when Vinny Testaverde and Bill Parcells like took over, that's when they started to like shake free of that like original curse kind of that had been haunting them since Super Bowl 3. And then that kind of lasted, like they had ups and downs, but they were mostly a pretty solid team at the very least, through halfway through that Mark Sanchez era.
Sanchez, I couldn't think of his name. I'm glad you finally said it.
and he had that butt fumble on, I think it was like a Thursday night game or a Sunday. It was a primetime game, and it was taken in for a touchdown. I think they, like, at that point that season was still alive. That might have been the year where after making it to back-to-back AFC championship games, they had brought in like a bunch of different like Plaxico Burress, like Santonio Hall, like an kind of put together like an all-star sort of team that everyone was like, okay, now the Jets are like, it's third year Mark Sanchez, they're going to be really good. And then that butt fumble is kind of the point that you can look at and say, okay, that's when it all started to go back downhill, and it has not gone back uphill yet.
Maybe it was when Rex Ryan, who was the coach, got the tattoo of Mark Sanchez, right?
That's true. That
might have been the actual curse itself. Oh, man, the poor Jets. Anyway, the Jets, they have lost their GM, and I saw like an article where they were interviewing Davante Adams because he was in with the Raiders when both Josh Daniels and their GM at the time was fired. Was that, what was his name?
Mike Mayock, I think.
Mike Mayock, yes, the big draft guy.
Mm-hmm.
They both were like fired while he was there. And then the head coach was fired like the week before he came, right? Or maybe a couple weeks before he came here to the Jets. But then the GM, and so he's been seeing this all over. And
He
They were
certainly
they were
has.
asking him, "Do you regret it?" And he's like, "Nah, I don't do regret. I just roll with the punches, keep going." So he's got
He was.
to.
I mean, if you could even go back to as far to Green Bay, he was part of the team that ended up getting Mike McCarthy fired too. So he's just been all over the place. Everywhere he goes,
He
someone's
is
gotta
the
someone's gotta
curse.
go.
And I know teams who are like, okay, well, we could get rid of our coach for him, but actually, he hasn't looked amazing yet as a Jet. I know him and Aaron Rodgers. I've seen like one or two catches. I'm like, oh, Devontae Adams is back. No, no, that was just kind of one in the game. Okay,
Yeah,
I keep
I,
waiting for it to be, but
they had one against the Texans where they were trying to close down the game, and it was kind of just one of those like Brandon talks about, is like they just like look at each other and nod and like just go off script and get a shot downfield. And
yeah.
I was like, okay, the Jets might be finally onto something. They've got the Rodgers to Adams connection, but as you said, it just has not been consistent week in and week out.
Yeah, so Devontae's been there for how long now? I thought I saw that for the 5 games he's been there, they're 1-5, or that I guess that'd be 6 games, but he's not been there that long.
Yeah, he's either been there. Yeah, it's been like 4, 5, or 6 games, and they've only won one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he wasn't there when they were. So if they've lost um 7 games so far, he wasn't there through the first 5 weeks because he wasn't there when they lost to the Vikings in London. I know that for sure.
Yeah, so it was less than that. But when they lost to the Colts this last weekend, they're like, man, that's the last straw. Look at that team we just lost to.
Yeah. Yep.
But we'll talk about that one in a moment. Hey, before we move on from the news, the last thing I had was evidently there is a burglary spree going on in the NFL and NBA. The FBI is involved, and the NFL has issued security alerts to teams regarding home burglaries. So I guess Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were both robbed last month. And then a guy, maybe you know him. Let's see, Linval Joseph, who's now with the Cowboys,
Yeah, former Viking. Yeah.
former Viking. He was robbed last week. But the FBI, some people come out and said this is legit. It's a transnational crime ring
Oh my
based out of
goodness.
South America, and they're targeting NBA and NFL players, getting them when they're not at home, a lot of times during games, which seems like it would make it really easy for law enforcement to be like, okay, let's watch their house. But I
Right.
guess there's like a lot of people in the NFL too. It's not just like it's like 7 guys. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And I mean, in the
that's going
NBA,
on.
they make like the role player guys make like $12 million. So they should just focus their efforts on those guys. But I find it interesting that like, oh, the NHL and MLB players aren't making the cut for this transnational robbery group.
You would think, yeah, baseball, man, they get the huge contracts,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
anyway,
Yep.
or
But
hockey, or
hockey
no,
not worth
soccer,
it. Yeah,
soccer.
soccer would be the one where like especially like the upper echelon, but I guess most of those teams are like over in Europe too.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, yeah. Anyway, lots of interesting stuff. I didn't know Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were burglarized on consecutive days last month. So
wow,
one right after the other. But
that's bold.
yeah. So they're getting something there. It says, it looks like they're just nothing special, not like Super Bowl rings that I can see, but maybe they said
Have
jewelry in there.
have they found any of these guys, or are they asking the public to be on the lookout for?
Not according to this article. It just says multiple people knowledge of the crime said they're non-confrontational. They don't burglarize homes while people are inside. They use public records to find their address, then use extensive surveillance, track team schedules and social media accounts. And then during games or when they're on like a podcast and nobody's home, they'll go in and they mostly get cash, jewelry, watches, handbags, focusing mainly on master bedrooms and closets.
Oh wow.
There you go. More info than you wanted today.
His neighbors gotta help him out. All these neighbors, they need to get a neighborhood crime watch. When Case
Yeah.
Keenum was in Minnesota, there was a big story about how his neighbors would shovel the snow out of his driveway for him before each morning practice. Like where are those
Wow.
guys at for Patrick Mahomes and
Well,
Travis
see,
Kelce?
Patrick Mahomes probably lives in such a big estate with such a big yard that you wouldn't really consider them neighbors.
That's true. That's true.
Whereas Case Keenum.
Yeah.
He's like, hey man, actually Case has probably done pretty well for himself. I look back at like him kind of moving from team to team. I've always liked Case Keenum, by the way.
Yeah.
He was, I don't know, something about his personality. I'm like, I could like that guy. He seems like a nice guy.
He was a fun guy.
So I think that's the news, except for the fact that the finalists for the Hall of Fame inductees list dropped. We'll get to that here in a moment. But any other news out there? Trying to think around the NFL, anything that's happened. It seems like there's always somebody's injured or somebody's back, but none of that's hit my radar this week anyway. So
Mike Evans might be back for the Buccaneers next game. There's some questions there, but yeah, I don't think there's too much in way of injury. Real quick though, the butt fumble, the 12-year anniversary of the butt fumble will be tomorrow. So mark down your calendars and find a way to celebrate.
Well, I think they celebrated by firing their GM.
Perfect.
They're like, let's go back to the good old days of firing people. All right. Well, hey, first thing I want to do before we, no, let's go straight to the inductees. Then we'll kind of review games from last week and look at the games coming up. Let's pull up our list here. You probably have a list there. I'm going to pull them up here. Obviously, there's some big names, but first I'm going to read the 25 semifinalists, not just the ones who are new this year, but I will read each one and then how many times they've been semifinalists. So we have Eric Allen, cornerback. He was with Minnesota, right? No,
I don't think so.
Philadelphia, New Orleans, and Oakland. Yeah. 5 times as a semifinalist, Eric Allen. Jared Allen is the one I was thinking.
Yes.
He was with the Vikings. He was with Kansas City first, but just for like a little bit. I don't remember him much there, but Minnesota is where I mainly remember him. He then went on to play for Chicago and Carolina at the end. He's been a semifinalist 5 times also. Willie Anderson, this is a little bit back with the Bengals and the Ravens. Anquan Bolden, we all remember him with the Arizona Cardinals. Dude was like tough. Remember when he busted his whole face and he'd wear that mask? Looked like the Phantom of the Opera out there playing.
Yeah. He made his money over the middle and he earned it.
He sure did. Ended with the Detroit Lions after a little stint with Baltimore and San Francisco, but he's been a semifinalist 4 times. Jari Evans, a guard. I don't really know this guy, but he did play for the Green Bay Packers, so I bet Brandon, who is not able to be with us today, I bet he would have been like, oh yeah, this guy was awesome because of 14 things, blah, blah, blah. but he's up semifinalist 3 times. Antonio Gates, there's a good one. Tight end with the Chargers, right?
Yes,
and Chargers, and he's been a semifinalist twice. But man, that guy he was good on my fantasy team for a long time.
He was great, and whenever you bring up Antonio Gates, there's the obligatory. He also played basketball in college, and actually never played football in college.
Yes.
And so that was the running. Anytime he had a national game, broadcasters had that one ready to go to let everyone know for the 15th time that he did not play football in college.
Who was the other tight end I'm thinking of? He wasn't with Arizona. He might have been with Kansas City.
Tony Gonzalez?
Tony Gonzalez. I always think of Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates like in the same mindset, just because they both were so prolific before there was like Gronk. You know?
Yeah.
When Gronk came along, he was obviously, and he hasn't hit yet, has he? He's still to come.
Yeah, I think because he was on a couple of those Brady Buccaneers teams.
Yes.
So, and I think there's like a 5-year window. Or
so him and Brady will probably hit the same time because I think they both stepped away at the same time. So that'll be fun. Let's see. We got James Harrison, who was the Pittsburgh guy, linebacker. He's been a semifinalist 3 times, James Harrison. Rodney Harrison with the Patriots. He's now, with Tony Dungy on the. Is he still with Tony Dungy on the Sunday Night Football?
They've like been rotating that so much. I'm not even sure, but I remember when it was Dan Patrick, him, and Tony Dungy, like every single night before the Sunday night games.
Yeah, but Rodney Harrison, safety with New England. He's been a semifinalist 4 times. Torrey Holt has been a semifinalist 11 times. Back with that Greatest Show on. Was he with the Greatest Show? It was right around that time, right?
Him and Kurt Warner, both. I mean, he was drafted
Right.
that year, and Kurt Warner
Yeah.
became the starter that year. So they kind of like turned a bad St. Louis team into the Greatest Show on turf.
Torrey Holt. I'll remember him always. There's a street in Indianapolis, Torrey Holt Way or Avenue or something. I'm like, that's weird. Why would we have that in Indianapolis? But it's there. Let's see. Luke Keckley. I can never say his last name. The linebacker for the Panthers. Semifinalist first time, or only one other time. This is his second time. And so, or no, this is his first time. This is his first. He was one of the new inductees this year. Keckley. How do you say it?
I think it's Kuechly. Luke Kuechly.
Keekley. Yes.
Maybe.
It's always the U in there that throws me. I try to put it in. Luke Kuechly. You're right. It's Kuechly. And this will be his first year, along with this next guy, Eli Manning, quarterback of the New York Giants, who did beat the New England Patriots twice in the Super Bowl. Both times he came out on top. This is his first year. Robert Mathis has been there this is his fourth time there. Defensive end and linebacker for Indianapolis, opposite the great Dwight Freeney, who went in last year. They were a terror on the edges. I loved that time of the Indianapolis Colts. So would love to be back there, where just every down people are like, what is going to happen? And especially on those third downs. Watch out.
Yeah, people talked about those Colts offenses, but I mean those defenses with those two, and then Bob Sanders.
Yeah,
like it was scary.
Sanders. Bob Sanders was always hurting himself, but it's because he was just like so violent, just flying at people. He was like small too, but he was just like always. You would always just see him coming in horizontally on the screen as he hit somebody.
Like, always through the correct gap, always like right there at the right time. Like he was there for, like, I mean, like you said, always injured, but always fun to watch.
Yeah. If he could have stayed healthy, man. Terrell Suggs, linebacker, defensive end with the Ravens, and then did a little bit with Cardinals and the Chiefs. This is his first year to be in also. Fred Taylor, the running back with Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the few Jacksonville Jaguars that I always thought, that guy's pretty good. And he played back with all the Blake Bortles and whoever else.
He would have been with like Mark Brunell even, and Byron Leftwich and David Garrard.
Oh yeah, all those guys. Now back when David Garrard was there, that was when the Jaguars actually were doing well, right? And I can't remember.
I think they made the playoffs once or twice with Garrard. Like Brunell was the guy early on in their franchise history that led him to a couple of AFC championship games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Taylor played with those guys. He, at the end of his career, got to share the backfield with Maurice Jones-Drew, and he had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. It just happened to be during Randy Moss's rookie season, so he didn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, that you have to like look at that when you have like a great year, and like the years around you, that would have been like enough. But like you had that guy with you. That was that has happened a few times where you'll have like somebody who does really great, but then there's somebody who does like even greater. I'm trying to think. Was it LT and then the guy from Seattle, was it Sean Alexander maybe? Yeah, like they were having like such great years at the same time. I remember once and thinking, wow, how does that happen at the same time?
Yeah.
Speaking of Seattle, Earl Thomas, defensive back with Seattle Seahawks, part of that Legion of Boom, right? He was part of that.
Yeah. Him, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and then whatever cornerback at the time was opposite Richard Sherman. Sometimes Brandon Browner, and then I forgot who the other guys were that played opposite. But yeah, that defense was tough to stop, and Earl Thomas was right in the middle of it, and kind of was one of those guys that helped transform them. They were not great in 2010 and 2011 during his first couple of years, and then by the time his third season came around, they were ready to be one of the great teams of the 2010s.
Yeah. my dad's name is Earl Thomas, and so when he got really big,
Oh, really?
people were throwing the name Earl Thomas around a lot. My dad's like, I don't know what's going on. I keep hearing my name everywhere. I'm like, I know what it is, Dad. I know what it is.
That's funny.
This next one, Adam Vinatieri started off with the New England Patriots and there for several of their Super Bowls, and then he moved to their greatest nemesis, the Indianapolis Colts, with Peyton Manning. He outlasted Peyton Manning, went right through the Andrew Luck era. Adam Vinatieri was kicker of kickers, man. That guy was the clutch kicker, and I think if there's ever a kicker that could be first ballot, I think we're looking at him right here. We'll talk about that in a minute when we make some selections. But anyway, he'll be up as a first-time semifinalist. Also, I said that with Earl Thomas, I think, first time. Fred Taylor, his sixth time. Okay, Hines Ward, wide receiver with Pittsburgh Steelers, tough guy, always in there doing what he needed to get that first down. This is his ninth time as a semifinalist.
His most impressive feat was scoring a kickoff return touchdown while the field was collapsing behind him in the Dark Knight Rises movie.
That would be the most famous thing he is known for.
Yes. Scored the touchdown. Got into the end zone.
I'd totally forgotten about that until you said that.
I mean, that's a 6-0 win, right? I mean, Gotham gets the win in that one.
There you go. Who knew? Ricky Waters, running back with San Francisco and other teams. But this was a while back when he started, 1992. Man, that's like Brett Favre era, right?
Yeah. He was fine. Like, he was a decent running back for a couple of years, but I don't think he'll make the finalists list.
Yeah. Reggie Wayne, wide receiver for those great Indianapolis Colts. He was opposite the great Marvin Harrison, who's already gone into the Hall of Fame on that team that has sent so many to the Hall of Fame. But he is still waiting along with Mathis, and this is his sixth time. I just think he needs to go in this year. Again, we're going to make picks in a minute, but I think Reggie Wayne, love Reggie Wayne. He is now a coach, wide receivers coach for the Indianapolis Colts, which is awesome to see when a player comes back and they can do it well. Awesome. They can teach well. So he's in there working with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman and A.D. Mitchell and all those guys. So Richmond Webb, this one's even further back, a tackle with the Miami Dolphins from 1990 to 2000. I'm not going to lie. So I was watching football at that time, but I was mostly watching the Colts. And so I don't know all these tackles and linebackers from other teams as well. So Richmond Webb, I don't know much about him. Do you?
Yeah, no, I would have been 8 years old when he retired. So I can't say I've ever heard his name before.
There you go.
Which I mean, he must have been like those offenses for the Dolphins in the night. He was protecting Dan Marino, and so he must have obviously was good. So I just don't know.
Here's the interesting thing: this is his first appearance as a semifinalist. He played in 1990. This is the first one he got to.
Wow.
You know how they say there's like a backlog sometimes?
Yeah.
This is the biggest backlog.
This epitomizes that.
Yes. Vince Wilfork for the New England Patriots. That guy was good. He played, I think, a season in Houston afterwards, but his big bread and butter was 2004 to 2014 with the New England Patriots. This is his fourth time as a semifinalist. Steve, okay, let's see if I can get this. This guy's even older. Wisnowski, guard for Los Angeles or Oakland Raiders. It was Oakland at that time.
Yeah.
Played from 89 to 2001. This is only his second time as a semifinalist. His first one was in 2014, and now he hasn't been on the list again until 2025.
Wow. 11-year gap there.
Yeah. But there's him for anybody out there. Darren Woodson, safety. This is his ninth time as a semifinalist. He was Dallas Cowboy from 92 to 2003, and he's been a semifinalist 9 times. And Marshall Yonda, Baltimore Ravens. This is his first appearance. Guard tackle there for them. You know much about him?
I don't know. No, I don't. Those Ravens like offensive lines though were always those
Yeah.
big muscular guys. I did find Richmond Webb did play in 7 Pro Bowls, so we'll put some respect on the Richmond Webb name now. So he was a Pro Bowler in the 90s.
Pro Bowler in the 90s, a tackle, and this is his
Part of
first.
the at NFL All 90s All Decade team as well. So I mean, it's surprising that it's his first time, I think.
Yeah. Well, at least he gets to be here. My guess is he's probably not going to make that finalist list.
Yeah.
Just hearing the stuff you just said about him, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. So that's your list of 25 right there. And now I read somewhere that there are 4 to 8, but I can't remember if that's just from this modern era or 4 to 8 is like all that gets into that's not all that gets in, right? Because they have the senior and then the coaches and contributors.
Yeah, I think typically it's up to 5 from this list can get in, and then 3 more from like the veterans committee or whatever it is. I know like it goes a process where they cut it from 15 down to 10, and then they go 10 down to 5, and then everyone in the room votes yes or no on those final 5. And I don't think we've had a year for like the last 2 decades where anyone has gotten not voted in out of the final group of 5 that gets into the exclusive room.
Right. Okay. So let's then try and see if we could narrow this down to 5. That's not easy.
No,
not easy at all. Because I feel like you're going to get some first ballots. So let's look at the guys who are brand new this year. And let me see if I can even remember who they are. We have down here. So we got Adam Vinatieri, Earl Thomas, Terrell Suggs.
Yeah.
I'm saying Terrell like Owens. Terrell Suggs. Eli Manning and Luke Kuechly. Are those 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, I think that
5.
I believe so.
Out of there, I think I've already said, I think Adam Vinatieri could be the one kicker to be a first ballot Hall of Fame. I think we've only had like a few kickers total even make the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah. Yep. There's like Fred Cox, I think, is one of them. Then Ray Guy. Yeah, he was a punter. Ray Guy was a punter. And then, I don't know if there's anyone else other than those guys.
So I know that that's probably a long shot for him to be a first ballot, even though I do think he gets into the Hall of Fame. No questions asked. I think the fact that he played on all those Super Bowl teams and then all those great teams, including a Super Bowl team with the Colts, and the fact that he was the one to kick the winning field goal like in the snow and like more than 1 year in a row. He's just got so much history and he's got numbers on his side because he played for so long. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Adam Vinatieri is going to be first ballot Hall of Fame.
I'll agree there. 2 game-winning Super Bowl kicks, right? I mean, like as time expires, one against the Rams, one against the Panthers. Like you mentioned, the one against the Raiders, he had not only the game-winning one, but also the game-tying one. Like that was from like 45 yards out to send it to overtime. Like he is like the most clutch kicker of all time, and then he also backs that up with the longevity, getting to play. He spent so much time after like his New England career was done. He spent so much time in Indianapolis as well. And I mean, what happens with the 2005 Colts? They lose on a missed field goal kick by Mike Vanderjagt. I don't know how to.
That's right, Vanderjagt. Man.
He's gone. They lose a game they were heavily favored against the Steelers, and so the Colts are like, okay, we got to get a kicker. They get Adam Vinatieri, and they win the Super Bowl. So that exact next year. So he's got a bunch of rings, and yeah, I think he's got to be in there.
Did he get all? No, he didn't get all the ones the Patriots got, did he?
No, he got the first three. He did play in the first Super Bowl in his rookie season as well, but they lost to the Packers in that one. But he would have gotten the first three of the Patriots dynasty, and then the one from the Colts.
Yeah, man. So Adam Vinatieri, I think he's going in. What about Eli Manning?
I think he's going in, and I don't know if he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know
2 Super Bowl wins.
Yes, and he would be, if he were never to make the Hall of Fame, the only other quarterback with 2 Super Bowl wins that has not made the Hall of Fame is Jim Plunkett, who won 2 with the Raiders back in like the 70s and 80s. So I think that's like, if you win 2 Super Bowls and you're better than Jim Plunkett, you're probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame, like regardless of anything else. I know he had a lot of up and down seasons. Like, he never had a season where he was the best quarterback in the league, but he took down the undefeated Patriots. He took down another Patriots team, like you mentioned earlier. So I think you've got to eventually put him in. I don't know if he gets in first ballot, or at least I don't know if he should get in first ballot.
Yeah, I debate on that too, because I remember watching him, and sometimes he would look really good and sometimes he wouldn't look so good, but like they were good enough to get to the Super Bowl. And then I feel like those Super Bowl wins, let's not lie, there was some just amazing luck in there when he should have been taken down on fourth and he threw it, and
David Tyree, yeah.
Who?
David Tyree. Yep.
Yeah. Caught the the ball against his head and went down and almost touched the ground, but it didn't. And because of that, that was a 4th down. That would have been the end of the game.
Yep.
But that happened and they won. But he did what he needed to, and his team did what they needed to. But you're right. I don't know if first ballot's going to happen like his brother, but we shall see what we shall see. Let's say he's not this year, just for our picks of 5. So we've got one in. Do you think any of those others have a chance at first ballot? You got Earl Thomas, Terrell Suggs. Who else did I say? Luke Kuechly.
I could see Luke Kuechly, but the fact that like his career is similar to Patrick Willis, where he was the best linebacker in the game, and they both stepped away at like 30 years old after like 7 or 8 seasons. And Willis just made the Hall of Fame last year on not his first year. So if like we follow kind of the thinking of the voters there, I don't think he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If I had a vote, I would put him in as a first ballot Hall of Famer, because he was, throughout the 2010s, he was just the best linebacker and maybe the best defensive player in the game. Earl Thomas, I will want in the Hall of Fame, not as a first ballot guy. Terrell Suggs, I could see him making the Hall of Fame as a first ballot guy, but I won't put him in for this exercise as a first ballot guy, because I think there are some 5 or 6 year guys that need to kind of clear up need to be put in so they can clear up a log jam.
So let's talk about some of these. Let's just start throwing out names of people we think might be put in. I think you only ever get what, 2, 3 wide receivers at the most.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I feel like
it's just 2.
I feel like they've been doing like just 1 or 2, and that's why that we have kind of a lot of great guys that could be in the Hall of Fame that haven't made it there yet, including Reggie Wayne, who I think is like I think he's going to be the next one in line.
I was wondering between him and Torrey Holt. They're both they were both good. I think Reggie Wayne, I think he had more stats, but I don't know. I haven't looked. Hines Ward is another one of the wide receivers, along with Steve Smith Sr. And who else is our wide receiver here? There was one more. Oh, Anquan Bolden.
And all of those guys like are really like Bolden and Smith are kind of like the similar type of receiver, like those tough guys that could go over the middle and be your possession guys. But yeah, I would say that both Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt should be the guys at the top of the wide receiver list. I don't know if you agree or disagree there, but I'm sure you agree about Reggie Wayne. But
Yeah,
I would
I
go
think I would
Wayne
with
is
both of
next
them.
in, Holt, and then yeah, because let's see. I mean, Torrey Holt, yeah, he had a in 2003 he had nearly 1,700 yards. He had a couple, or like, and again, he helped transform that Rams offense that had been, and a lot of it was Kurt Warner, but it had been so bad when he came into the league and then ended up being really good. He made Mark Bulger look like a superstar quarterback for a couple of
Yes.
seasons. So, I mean, he had to play with a ton of different guys and typically got the job done all throughout his career.
Yeah, that man, those St. Louis quarterbacks. Who was that last quarterback? The last one in the draft class where before it was like slotted. Dude made tons of money.
Sam Bradford, yeah, he would
Sam
have.
Bradford. Man, that guy like got such a huge contract as a straight up rookie. He was the last one to get that big, big, big one, and then he still got like another one from. Was it? Where did he go after that? Florida? No,
He went to Philadelphia, and then he went, and the
Philadelphia.
Vikings traded a first round draft pick for him. Um, and so he was with the Vikings for 2 seasons. And Case Keenum is the one that replaced him in 2017 because he got injured, and that's when the Vikings went on their magical run. And then his knees were just terrible at that point, and he went to Arizona for one final year, and it didn't work out, and he was
It's
benched
crazy the
for
number of teams he played for and contracts he got
yeah.
because he
Yeah.
was never like great.
Well, so his arm, like he had one of the best, most accurate, like and biggest fastballs in the league. But one, he couldn't stay healthy, and two, he couldn't always make the right. He was a lot like Kirk Cousins in that, like he made a lot more cautious reads, and like didn't really open it up a lot unless it was like unless the window was absolutely wide open. Um, and also both of them can't really move around all that much. So yeah, he ended his career being benched for Josh Rosen of the Arizona Cardinals.
Man, I remember when he had all the hype around him too. Anyway, back to this. I think let's say I'm gonna go Reggie Wayne this year. So man, I've got two Colts so far: Adam Vinatieri and Reggie Wayne. Do I think Mathis will get in this year? Unfortunately, I don't.
I mean, he could.
I would love for him to get in. I think he so deserves it. Part of what made Dwight Freeney so good was because Robert Mathis was also there, and they were coming from both sides, and so you never knew who was going to be the one to get you.
Yeah,
That would be. I would say that would be awesome for me. That would make the beginning of next year, even with my Colts team maybe not being awesome right now, it would make it so great to watch three former Colts go in.
Yeah, that would be absolutely incredible. Because you said Dwight Freeney got in this last year, correct?
Right.
So,
Yep.
a lot of those. I mean, we already have Peyton Manning in, Marvin Harrison's in. Like a lot of those guys are going to just keep going on in, and that team was special in the 2000s. And if not for Tom Brady, probably would have won a couple more. Tom Brady and Mike Vanderjagt would have won a couple more Super Bowls.
Mike Vanderjagt was the kicker who like called out Peyton Manning and said he thinks he's all that, or I forget what he said, and everybody in Colts Nation was like, "You're done."
While he was on the team, he's calling out a guy who at this point in his career was already one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. It's absolutely could you imagine Justin Tucker saying something about Lamar Jackson right now, or Harrison Butker saying something like that about Patrick Mahomes? Like it's absolutely unbelievable.
That would be like Patrick Mahomes saying, "Oh, he's not that great."
Yeah, it's
he thinks
crazy.
He's all that. It's like, oh man, yeah. All right, so let's go on. Who do we got? We got two so far. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna go full homer and say Mathis gets in. I know this may not be the most realistic. I don't know, but I'm going to go with those three right now. I feel like somehow the people who are voting would be like, so, well, we can't do that. That'd be great.
Among the defensive ends, edge rusher type guys, I think he might be the best one. I guess him and Terrell Suggs, and with Mathis having been there now in his fourth year, maybe they might just give the nod to him. So I think it's certainly a realistic possibility.
Let's see. So if we did those three, what do you think about Jared Allen up there?
He could be. I guess he's also kind of on that same level in terms of like just being a monster pass rusher. I don't know. There were some other things he didn't do great during his career, but it's like at the end of the day, it's going to be the numbers that get you in. So I could see this year, if not this year, it would be next year. But I'm fine leaving him off this year if like it's for somebody like Antonio Gates was one of the best at his position. Like I think I might put him in.
I would do that too.
Instead of instead of Jared Allen this year.
All right, so we've got 4 if you put Antonio Gates in there with those 3 Colts we were talking about. Let's get one more. I'm feeling like there should be a safety maybe go in on this one. Who do we have? We have Darren Woodson and we have Rodney Harrison. I don't know. Maybe we could put in one of those dudes that was like, first time in 20-some years. I doubt it. Actually, it's more than 20 years. If you're going from 1990, that's 30 years ago, right?
When 34? They started, when he started his career. I feel like they like to put an offensive lineman though in every single year. And I'm just looking at some of the resumes of the ones that are here. We talked about the 7 Pro Bowlers for Richmond Webb. Willie Anderson has 4. Marshall Yanda, so he played guard and tackle, and he went to 8 Pro Bowlers, with his most recent one being in 2019. So, I mean that could be a possibility. Oh, okay. I mean, I really like Vince Wilfork. I don't know how he'll feel about going in alongside a bunch of Colts players, but I would go either Wilfork or Rodney Harrison for my final spot.
Both would hate going in with all the Colts, right? Because they
were that's true
at the same time.
Yep.
So, all right, well, there you go, friends. Any of you out there who are going to listen to this and you have different picks, you're like, man, those are the stupidest picks ever. Text us or email. No, don't email us. Send it through one of the comment sections or social media or something, man. Josh Haupt, the guy who used to be on, he was always the dude who like took care of all that stuff. And I never, ever did. And now, so you can email him, text him, social media him, and he'll let me know.
That's perfect. Some 70-year-old in Miami right now is screaming at the at his computer about our disrespect for Richmond Webb today.
Yep. When did Richmond Webb play? I got to find him again on this list. Where was he?
He played 1990 to 2000 with Miami, and then 01 to 02 with the Bengals.
Okay. By the way, this last weekend, I know we're getting ready to get into the games right now that just happened, but I'm going to kind of preview this one. It was Detroit playing Kansas City. Obviously, I was rooting for Detroit. I mean, let's say obvious because everybody knows I hate Kansas City. They're great. It was just like New England. They were good. Yes, I give them a respect of that, but I hated them every year. And so I wanted Detroit to win, but there was this little bitty tiny sliver of my brain that's like, the only reason I want Kansas City to maybe win is because if they could run this whole table and shut up the 1972 Dolphins, I would be for that. But then I would have to listen to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not for that. So I was, it was a 0.1%. 99.9% was still rooting for the Lions. So all that because you said Dolphins guys screaming at the computer. And I had to think back to, old Dolphins were that team that every year they pop their corks and talk about how great they are.
unfortunately, the guy that like led the champagne popping, Mercury Morris, I think he passed away earlier this year. So
You
I
know
don't
they're
know if
going to
they,
do it in his
yeah,
honor. They're
yeah,
still going
and
to do it.
they got to have. Oh, he only passed away back in September, so at the beginning of this season. But yeah, him and Larry Zonka were a good
Larry
running
Zonka.
field backfield or running
Larry
back
Zonka.
backfield.
By the way, here's a little piece of trivia that none of you who are sports fans even care about or want to know. But Larry Zonka was in a movie that had to do with like magic, and it was featured on the great and awesome Mystery Science Theater 3000 back in the 1990s. If you have heard of that, have you heard of that, Josh?
Yeah, yeah. It took the person that made it is from Minnesota, and he went to a
Was it
uh,
Joel?
a Christian university that was right next to my Christian university. Yeah, yep. He went to Bethel University, which is right next to
That
the
is
little
awesome.
Northwestern that is not in Chicago. So
I did
we
not
all,
know
yeah,
that about
everyone
Joel.
in Minnesota knows about him. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I loved that show. I loved it, and it took a special kind of love because you had to sit there for like 2 hours watching, and like every once in a while you would chuckle, but it was worth it because some of those chuckles were
Every
so
time.
good.
Yeah,
If you don't know what that is, go look up Mystery Science Theater 3000, and if you want to do your sports edition, look up the one that had Larry Zonka in it because they talk about him all the time as a football player. So,
that's funny.
okay. Well, let's move on to talking about this last week's games. I just kind of want to go through each game and say just a couple words on each. And it doesn't have to be more than a couple words, or it might be a lot of words. We'll start with the Eagles Commanders. Eagles beat the Commanders 26-18. This was the big battle for the NFC East top spot, right? They were tied, I think, going in.
Yeah, well, the Eagles had a half game lead because they had played one last game, so so they were 7-2. The Commanders were 7-3, and so whoever won, yeah.
So with this, that was a big deal because you also get the in division thing, the head to head thing, the tie break thing. So Eagles now in first place in the NFC East and Commanders in the second. I do think the Commanders aren't finished yet, and they could catch up. But I think even if they don't, they're definitely going to be one of those wild card spots. But right now, the Eagles sitting on top. What did you think of that game? Did you watch it at all? I did not get a chance to watch this one, Eagles Commanders.
Yeah, so neither Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels were super impressive. It was mostly towards the end of the game. Saquon Barkley had a couple of big touchdown runs. The Eagles only had 3 points in the first half, and their field goal kicker, Jake Elliott, he missed, I think, 2 or 3 field goals along with one extra point,
Wow.
which was insane to see. But with like 5 minutes or 6 minutes left in this game, it was a one possession lead. I think it was 15-10, or no, 12-10. And Washington on 4th and 2 in field goal range decided to go for it instead of kicking a field goal that would put them ahead. And Jaden Daniels like bobbled the snap, and it kind of ruined the rhythm of the play. I think it was a quarterback run or a speed option to the right side. And that bobble, it made him hesitate for a second, and that split second was all the Eagles needed to get in and bring him down. And that's when those 2 long Saquon Barkley touchdown runs was right after that. So it was closer, and it was like 26-10 at one point, and then Washington scored at like a garbage time touchdown, but it was a little bit closer than that even the 8-point game suggests. So yeah, both of these teams moving forward still are going to be competitive, probably still going to be playoff teams. I will say Washington, I think, is 7-0 against teams with 500 or below records, and 0-4 against teams with records above 500. However, their schedule the rest of the way features mostly teams with below 500 records.
Which is good for the regular season. What's that say for when they get to playoffs? We'll have to see. What I will say is Saquon Barkley, I've said this before, I'll say it again on this podcast, he has paid dividends for that trade that he was involved in for the Philadelphia Eagles in New York. Oh, you let a good one go. I remember I drafted Saquon Barkley #1 overall the year he came into the league. And of course, if you remember, he got hurt on the first play, I think, and didn't play all year. But I had that much faith in him then. All right, let's go to our next game. Packers versus Bears. This was the 20-19. It was a 1-point game, and the Bears were kicking a field goal right at the end, blocked. What did you think of that game?
I thought it was a good start for a new offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown. Um, Caleb Williams on the would have been game winning drive. The first two plays, he was sacked and he had a 3rd and 19, and he felt pressure on that 3rd and 19 play, was able to somehow spin out of it and hit an open receiver to make it a 4th and 3. And then he made the best throw of his season so far on a back shoulder dart to Rome Odunze. So I think there's some encouraging things there. Thomas Brown obviously wanted to get Caleb Williams using his legs a little bit more because there were a lot of read options or designed rollouts for Caleb to kind of make some of that happen through the ground. Now teams can be a little bit more weary about what he can do on the ground. I know he was a scrambler in college, but he wasn't necessarily a guy that would run the read option a lot at USC and hadn't so far up until this point. But now you know that the Bears are willing to do that. You can't just key in on DeAndre Swift. You got to know where Caleb Williams is going to be at all times. For the Packers, it was kind of a weird game for them because they mostly dominated on offense. They got into the red zone almost every single time, but one of those red zone drives ended with an interception on not a great throw by Jordan Love, and another one was a turnover on down. So it could have been a little bit more lopsided than it was, but the Bears defense kind of buckled down once Green Bay got into the red zone. But Jordan Love made a great play when they needed it most, hitting Christian Watson on a crosser to set up the game-winning touchdown.
Another game for the Bears where right at the end, they probably felt pretty good about their chances of winning. That kick wasn't a long kick. They were going in. I bet Caleb Williams was like, finally, we beat these Packers. And then, boom, oh, it was just like that Washington Hail Mary game where he thought he did what he needed to, and he's standing there, time's running out, and then, oh my goodness. And so he's getting his lumps in as far as like really close losses.
Yeah. Yep.
But unfortunately, if he would have won that when, or if they would have won that when, they would have been 5-6, and the Packers would have been 6-3. They would have still been one game, But now it's starting to spread a little bit. You got the Lions at 9 wins, Vikings at 8, Packers at 7, and the Bears all the way down at 4. It's getting harder and harder for them with each of these close losses, but. That when I know several Bears fans who were at once like, how in the world? And then at once like, I know exactly how in the world. We're the Bears. And that's how they felt. So Packers will take that, even though it was a 1-point win that almost was not a win for them. And they'll talk like we're the toughest things coming. And we've already heard Jordan Love talking about like, yeah, we're ready to get back in and pay back the 49ers for last year with this next week's game. So we'll have to see where they end up. But right now, the Bears solidly in 4th. The Packers, 1 game back from the Vikings in 3rd place. They're in the NFC North. How about Lions Jags? I don't think anybody expected anything different than that score, 52-6. Yeah. I think that's exactly what I expected.
It was as dominant as a victory as I've ever seen at the NFL level. Like usually when you have these blowouts, like there's some, like it's usually obviously the better team winning, but there's also usually some like fluky plays that kind of lead to those blowouts, like a punt return touchdown or like an interception return or a couple of defensive stuff like that. This was Detroit just going on these long drives each and every time they got the football field and just burying Jacksonville each and every time. 7 touchdown drives to start out the game. It's like when Alabama plays like whatever FCS school early on in the football season. That's what this game looked like. That FCS school against Alabama had a better chance than Jacksonville did. And it 645 yards of offense for Detroit. They outgained Jacksonville by like 445, I think. Like if you get 445 total yards of offense in a game, that's a good day offensively for you.
Yeah.
If you outgain your opponent by 445 yards, then it's like it's just incredible. So it was a clinic. Nothing they did went wrong. They ran 76 plays. 38 of them were for first downs. Half of every play, and that doesn't include the 7 touchdowns. So on more than half of their plays, they were either in the end zone or getting a first down.
It's dominant. It was dominant. And so you have to like look at the Jags defense, which was horrible, but then their offense wasn't any better. They put up 2 field goals.
Yeah. Mac Jones, speaking of Alabama, somehow won a national championship at the college level. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure if it's Mac Jones is a common name. It might have been a different Mac Jones
he was mixed
won
up in the draft. They just drafted that guy down the street.
Because man, he did not look like he was just throwing it to spots. He wasn't throwing it to like receivers, and most of the times those spots were out of bounds. Like he was just trying to get rid of the ball quickly because he didn't want to face down that Lions pass rush. But it was as bad as it could be for Jacksonville and as good as it could be for Detroit.
It was, and now they are Jacksonville's one of 3 teams that only have, or 4 teams that have 2 wins, right? We have the Giants, we have the Raiders, we have the Jags, and the Browns.
Yes,
our 2-win teams. So all vying for that first overall pick already. Oh wait, and the Titans. Let's not forget the Titans. Of course, they're in there too.
Yeah.
So good old AFC South. Let's move on. Dolphins 34 over Raiders 19. Dolphins actually came out and won a game like you had been predicting that they would. Now it was against the Raiders. Nobody knows if that makes you feel good or not, but I mean, a win is a win. It's better than a loss. What'd you think about that game?
Yeah, this was another one that was like the Dolphins got a couple of late touchdowns, but it was just like a weird game in general. Both of these teams in the first half had 2 possessions because they both took off like 7.5 minutes on their first drives of the game and second drives of the game. Like it was fun if you're watching the game and it's like, all right, I'm on a time crunch here. I got to get out of here because they just kept running the football and the clock just kept on draining. It was 10-6. Both teams, there were no punts, no turnovers in that first half. No turnover on downs even, and the score was only 10-6 at that point. But anyway, Tua looked good. They didn't take a whole lot of deep shots down the field. But when they did, Tyreek Hill was getting open on some of those crossers. And then, it's just the creative run game that Mike McDaniel likes to use. He likes to, like one of his trademarks is that toss play that's actually an inside run that kind of just like gets the defense going every which way. He just likes to mess with the angles and the amounts of people that he puts in the box. Like he'll bring a lot of wide receivers in tighter to the formation so that they can be used as extra blockers with still the threat of them running deep. You can't if it's a blocking tight end, you're okay. This guy's not going to go run a route. If it's Tyreek Hill who can block well, coming in there to set a block, it's like, well, I can't just key in on that because he might go over the top of my head. But yeah, they looked good on offense. Defense a little bit more suspect against Gardner Minshew. I know they only gave up 19 points, but there were a lot of long sustained drives by Las Vegas that kind of that didn't end in points, but got into the red zone, got a lot of yards. And unfortunately for Las Vegas, ended with field goals more often than touchdowns.
Yeah, poor Las Vegas. They're not doing so great either as one of our 2-win teams. And I think there's going to be big changes there at the end of this year, as with most of those. Yeah. Rams beat the Patriots 28-22. It was only a 6-point game. I know you're a big fan of Drake May, and probably were pulling for that to flip the other way. But the Rams and Matthew Stafford pulled that one out. I didn't get to watch that game, so I don't know how close that was as they came to the end.
Yeah, both quarterbacks looked really, really good. Like Matthew Stafford was on the money. Drake May was on the money. It did end with a Drake May interception on a final drive, and it was because Demario Douglas didn't turn around to look for the football, and he did. So instead of him getting the pass, it went right over his head and into the hands of Cameron Kinchins. I think he's a rookie.
Yeah.
So he got the interception. And but yeah, I mean, Stafford had there was a throw to the tight end Colby Parkinson, I think, on his last touchdown, which it was just a absolute beautiful rainbow throw to the back corner of the end zone. He looked good, and then Drake May continues to make strides ahead. And I think I feel like I'm saying this every week, but I think again this was his best game so far.
And they're probably not going to make any huge difference this year with their 3 wins, but that I think they're going to probably nicely pull into either second or third in that division here next year as they're coming in. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the Jets right now if Aaron Rodgers is even going to be back.
That's very true. And the thing that I think this Patriots team can teach us is before the season, or before the draft rather, a lot of like experts or pundits were saying, well, the Patriots shouldn't draft a quarterback because they don't have the pieces around him yet to make him successful. They drafted the quarterback anyway. He's been successful. Like, would you feel better if you're a Patriots fan if you had like Joe Alt right now, like a good solid player, but still question marks for the rest of that offense? Like, I don't think they would. So if you're a team that has a good feeling about a quarterback coming out of this next draft, but you're worried that you don't have the pieces around him, just put those inhibitions aside and get the quarterback, because it's going to be a lot easier for the Patriots to build around Drake May coming into next season than it would be if they had gotten like Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison or like Malik Neighbors, like good players, but not the difference maker that a franchise quarterback can be.
Right. And Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., what are they going to do if the guy doesn't throw them the ball? It's going to look like they're not as great as everybody thought they were. And yep. Let's see. Who do we have next? We have Saints beating the Browns handily. I don't think anybody at this point is surprised by just the Browns' lack of any ability to slow down anybody. But Saints, who is it starting with him? Is it Carr now?
Derek Carr is back. Yeah. It's not Rattler anymore. I did watch this game back, but I honestly don't remember much of it. Like I know it was 14-14, I think entering the third or entering the fourth, and then the Saints kind of ran away with it. Oh, they ran away with it because Taysom Hill. That's right. He had that was it was like the biggest game he's had in that kind of role that they use him in. They let him throw, they let him catch the ball, they let him run the ball, they let him return a kick. He scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. Now he also did have 1 fumble and threw an interception in the game. It was a wild ride. So the interim coach for the Saints is now 2-0. I think Rizzi is his name. I don't know what his first name is, but
is it Sky Rizzi?
Sky Rizzi.
I'm assuming you get those commercials in Peacock or Hulu or whatever. Man, seems like every time like Sky Rizzi.
But they fired Dennis Allen, and like Taysom Hill is the one that has remained constant for New Orleans throughout the last 3 head coaches. Now
he was there when Drew Brees was there, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was. Yeah,
he was like that new kind of fangled thing, and then they gave him that huge contract that really wasn't a huge contract. Remember that one? It was like they gave him like there wasn't a whole lot of guaranteed money. Like it was kind of like it was like weirdly structured, and it was like if you were paying just a backup quarterback, that it would be like, okay, that you're kind of overpaying for him. But like Taysom Hill is not just a backup quarterback. And now he's not even a backup quarterback. He's just like this like tight end running back wide receiver combo. He's a Swiss utility knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Swiss
for sure.
Army knife, Swiss utility knife. Let's see. We had Steelers. Speaking of people with a gadgety quarterback that they can put in, I think we might be seeing that more with Pittsburgh here. But Pittsburgh beat the Ravens, and they were fighting for that first place. I think most people thought the Ravens were going to win this one, me included. I thought the Ravens would pull that out, but the Steelers. Now, it was only by 2 points, but they won. What are we thinking now?
I think it's a credit to the Steelers defense. I think it was Russell Wilson's worst game with Pittsburgh so
Yeah.
far.
Yep.
And I mean, I know typically we think of the Ravens as like a really good defense, but their secondary hasn't been this year. So he wasn't able to take advantage, but he still did get his weekly deep shot to George Pickens that ended up being complete,
Yeah.
which is just, it's just fun to see George Pickens go up and catch the football on a lot of these sky balls that Wilson throws. But yeah, Justin Tucker missed a couple of field goals in this game. And that's a little, I mean, obviously
That makes the difference.
there's the butterfly effect that every team's, the team's going to play it a completely different way if those field goals go in. But like that's a 6-point swing. And like Lamar Jackson looked okay, but he definitely was limited and contained. So it was just kind of the Steelers playing really good football and getting some timely turnovers as well. Baltimore had the lead 7-6 heading into halftime until on their last drive with about 20 seconds left, they threw it to Isaiah Likely. And I forgot who on Pittsburgh punched it out, but somebody punched the ball out and Pittsburgh fell on it and was able to kick a field goal to right before halftime and kind of ruined momentum because Baltimore had just scored on the drive previous to that. And I think that kind of ended up swinging the game. Baltimore got what could have been the game tying touchdown if they had done the 2-point conversion the right way, but they rolled out Lamar Jackson to the left without many blockers in front of him, so it didn't look like it was going to be a run. But there also weren't any receivers on that side of the field, so it didn't look like it was going to be a pass. I don't know what I don't know what happened in that last 2-point conversion play, but as you mentioned, Justin Fields, like he has a role on this team if they want to give it to him more, because he could have had the first down dagger run. It ended up being, I think, Najee Harris on a 1-yard run, but he like got himself open on a read option play to pick up the final first down of the game. He just slid 2 yards early, and Najee Harris, I think, ended up getting the first down on the next one. But I mean, if you have that sort of change up that you can throw, he's still a guy that can throw the football if you put him in there, and probably throws the football better than Taysom Hill throws the football for New Orleans. So he becomes even more of a threat in that way. That makes the offense more dynamic for Pittsburgh, and also gives you a break from Russell Wilson, who doesn't always play the prettiest football anymore.
I remember when they got Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick, and then they added Russell Wilson, and we're all like, oh my goodness, that's going to be such a team. And then as we were watching through training camp and in the first couple of weeks, we're like, I don't know, what's happening here, because Russell Wilson is not playing and he's not going to be in, and Justin Fields is like right at the edge every time. It's like they may be able to like make a little noise, but they're doing more than make a little noise. They're top of their division, and once again, Mike Tomlin is being Mike Tomlin, doing what he needs to do. That guy's gonna go far. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm gonna predict that Mike Tomlin's gonna be a success.
if a team that had him as a defensive coordinator before he went to go to be a head coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers would have kept him, then we'd be talking about the Minnesota Vikings dynasty right now. But alas, we decided to go with Brad Childress. And
oh yes, Brad Childress was an EIU grad.
Man.
Oh man, let's see. We got, speaking of Vikings, the next one on the list is Vikings beating the Titans 23-13. I would hope so. I'm sure you watched this game. Did they do it well, or was it not as well as you would liked it?
It was good. Like they did a great job stopping the run. Now Will Levis did throw like a 98-yard touchdown pass in this game to Nick Westbrook-Akine. It is. It's like, oh man, like it was on 3rd and long too, and we had just like gotten 2 stops on the run, and then decided to go big blitz, and our guy that was supposed to be covering the deep third of the field for some reason froze. Josh Metellus, he froze and like was late getting over to go get that deep third and cover Westbrook-Akine. But so that was like the one blemish on defense, but otherwise, like Tony Pollard and this offensive line for Tennessee, they're good at running the football, but not against the Vikings. Minnesota, like when I'm watching it back, there was a lot of like them staying in their gap and not not getting out of the way, or not like over pursuing Pollard, or they ran a lot of read option with Will Levis on their first couple of drives, and every single time they were able to key in on Will Levis, and it also helped that Will Levis wasn't making the right read. Like when the edge rusher was in his lane, he didn't hand it off to the back. He decided to try and take on that edge rusher multiple times. So they did go away from that read option, and that's when the Titans offense looked a little bit better, but they were pretty much locked down throughout the game. Great performance by Sam Darnold as well. The one thing that I liked Kirk Cousins when he was here. The one thing that I think Sam Darnold does better than Kirk Cousins is he can operate in a tight pocket, whereas Kirk Cousins kind of starts getting panicky and like will kind of just let it come to him, and he's like, okay, I'll wave the white flag and have it collapse around him, or he's not able to like really get out of there. Sam Darnold is. There were a number of times in this game where he was sacked. It looked like he was sacked, and like he had someone coming up from behind him that he couldn't see, but he stepped up into the pocket. Even though, like, I don't know if there's
Just
like
felt
somebody,
it.
like an offensive lineman is telling, yeah, he felt it, or an offensive lineman is telling him, or he has another set of eyes back there. Like it was incredible. Some of the ways that he was able to maneuver out of the pocket, and that allowed him to get some deeper throws. He made a great pass to Jordan Addison. He made a great pass rolling out opposite of his throwing hand, so rolling out to his left, and had to kind of contort his body, and then threw it 35 yards on a rope to Justin Jefferson into tight coverage. And then he had one of his touchdown passes dropped. He had a post route splitting the middle of the field in between two safeties, and he dropped it right into the breadbasket of Jalen Naylor, who's had a couple of drops now, but Naylor ended up dropping that one, or else it could have been like an even more of a lopsided game. 23-13 is fine. Like I would have hoped maybe they would have done a little bit better against Tennessee, but it's a 3-game winning streak. It's a sweep of the AFC South, I guess, and actually sweep of the AFC because we beat the Jets too. So all of the games left for Minnesota are NFC games, and a lot of them are divisional ones, including this next one at Soldier Field against the Bears. Excuse me. They're in good position right now, though.
I tell you what, if you were in, there are 3 of the 8 divisions that have a 9-win team in them. Any of those other ones, you would be in first place in your division, but you happen to be in one of those with the Lions, and there's also Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills with their 9 wins. But yeah, 8 wins would normally have you in the lead, but you are in second place, and you got the Packers right behind you. It is a tight division in that NFC North, and it's going to be fun watching that the rest of the year. Next, we have the Colts and the Jets. That was a 1-point game, and I did watch this one closely. And I will say this, Anthony Richardson came out and, did what he needed to do. And, I see people online, it's like, Anthony Richardson, take that, and I'm like, okay, calm down. Let's slow down. We were playing against the Jets. Let's remember that. And I will say this, I've watched a Jets game or two this year, but man, in this one, I really did feel like Aaron Rodgers was throwing behind his receivers a lot. I feel like that happened. I feel like if he would have been throwing where he needed to, they could have easily beat us. But I feel like there were several throws where his receiver had to like turn around and try and grab this ball coming in behind them and couldn't get it. And so I don't know what that means about Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. And has he hit the wall? He might have. As we're looking at this year, because you look at what are all the other reasons they could be doing as badly as they are. There's probably a host of them, but Indy won, 1-point game, and we'll take it. It's a W. Now, I don't expect that to be long-lived. We play the Detroit Lions this coming week, and I'm not going to predict that we're going to win that one, as much as that would be fun to say. It would be a total lie to believe. I do believe after the Lions, and I feel like maybe there's one other, I can't remember, but I feel like our schedule gets a lot easier, and I do think we're going to get some more wins. Problem is, I think Houston Texans won this week also, so we didn't move up any in our division. Jets, on the other hand, they're moving down in their division, and it's bad there. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I thought that Anthony Richardson looked good, and as good as he could look against a Jets defense that was leaving a lot of open wide receivers. I know, like on that first drive, he had kind of one wonky throw where he was rolling out to his left and was just trying to dump it off on like a screen, and it kind of was a bit wonky. But other than that, um, it was mostly like the layups were there. He took them and he got them where he wasn't getting the layups earlier in the year
Mm-hmm.
because of some of the accuracy things. So, I mean, like you said, it's one game, but it's something to build off of.
Right.
And he was really good on the ground with with that game winning touchdown and then the touchdown earlier where he ran over a New York Jet player. I think it was on their first or second drive of the game.
Yeah,
And like he
to get
just
that
punished a
touchdown.
Jets player. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like he can do it. He can do it on the ground and like hopefully the accuracy issues continue to be kind of uh in the past or become more and more in the past as we started to see them kind of go away a little bit this last week.
This was a good game to come back to the Jets, to build some confidence in him. Unfortunately, we play the Detroit Lions next week, and that could that has the potential to destroy any goodwill we've made up here, any ground we've made up. Because remember, they just beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. What was it, 52-6? And if you remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars have 2 wins. One of those wins came against the Indianapolis Colts. Now,
Yes.
granted,
Yeah.
that was Trevor Lawrence, not Mac Jones, and all this kind of stuff. But like, I do not want next week to be a 52-6 sort of outing for Anthony Richardson as he's trying to get in and build some confidence and get back to feeling like, okay, I can do this. So, if there was one team I wish we were not playing this coming week, it's probably the Lions above all. I mean, Buffalo is also no fun. Kansas City, I would even take because they haven't been playing great, even though they've been winning up until this last week. Yeah, that's as is though. This week
On the
we
bright
celebrate the win.
on the bright side, you can look at it as like Detroit, like they do every week, is probably going to score a lot. So Anthony Richardson's going to get a lot of throwing reps in game time this week. He's going to
Yeah,
get a lot of chances to drop back and work on any lingering accuracy issues. And then maybe he's able to keep it close and get him into a position to. I hope they also get the win because then it would
right.
give us some even ground with Detroit with still one head-to-head game left against them at the end of the year.
Yeah,
So
for
go
both of us
Colts.
on this podcast, we're rooting for the Colts. And most weeks I'm going to be rooting for the Lions because I don't want to say it's my NFC team, but it's my NFC team. And so this week though, that's out the window. I'm rooting for the Colts. Broncos, who we have repeatedly, Josh has repeatedly said, Bo Nix is not the guy. Bo Nix is not the guy. But man, they just keep winning. And they, once again, against Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, they put up a pretty strong showing, 38-6. Thoughts on this?
Oh, sorry, my headphones cut out there. Which
Are you saying they really did, or you
Yeah,
just
Bo
didn't want
Nix.
me to say Bo Nix did well?
No, no, they did not really. They did not really cut out. Yeah, no, Bo Nix looked good. He that offense, the game plan was good against the Atlanta Falcons, and this is clearly the best game we've seen from Bo Nix so far this season. He had a couple of really good throws. One was like this deep shot over the middle of the field where it was layered over 2 levels of defenders that were both streaking towards it, and then layered in between or in front of another defender that was coming from the opposite way. So it was a really nice throw, and it needed to be a fastball, and it was a fastball, and it got there in tight coverage. And then his last touchdown throw was one where he threw it off platform. The guy was open, but he still was able to make a throw that was similar to Sam Darnold's throw to Justin Jefferson that I just talked about. It was similar to that, to Lil Jordan Humphrey, and that one went for a touchdown. Granted, 2 of the touchdowns were screens, and then another touchdown was this design play where Sean Payton has all the wide receivers go to one side of the field and then leaks out a tight end who was blocking to the other side of the field kind of as the lone man, and he broke wide open, and the play call worked, and Bo Nix was able to hit him for the touchdown. So the three of the touchdown throws were Sean Payton and his receivers doing a lot of that extra work, but he was making good reads and he was not making mistakes. And the one thing that I thought coming into the season that could have been a big worry is he would make mistakes and not be able to read NFL defenses to the point where he could be a disaster for them. At the very least, at least now we can see his floor is that he can be a capable starting quarterback in this league, and you can see what his ceiling is when the offense complements what he is able to do, like it was in this game against the Falcons. From Atlanta's side of things, pass rush is non-existent. It looked like a 7-on-7 competition between whenever the Broncos were on offense. Like nobody was really covering anybody. Nobody was like able to get past the Broncos offensive line, which has kind of been like, if I'm a Broncos fan, that's like the thing that I'm most surprised about this year is how good that offensive line has been, because it wasn't great last year, but this year has been just very, very good. Yeah, if the Falcons play more teams that have good offensive lines like that throughout the rest of the season, I think they're really going to struggle. And then it was just a bad Kirk Cousins game. You can pull out a piece of paper randomly and it will say good Kirk Cousins game or bad Kirk Cousins game. And there's no trend to it, but that is how it is decided whether or not Kirk has a good or bad game, whether he looks comfortable or doesn't look comfortable. And like, sometimes it's the night game, sometimes it's not the night. Like there's no way to predict it. It's just, all of a sudden he's a little bit more timid today. So, and that just happened to be the case against the Broncos this past weekend.
Unfortunately, what we've got here is last week we said the Broncos are going to drop out of this playoff picture. It's looking less like that with them having 6 wins. Chargers were one of those in that wild card spot. Also, they have 7 wins. And so we had talked about, for the Colts, obviously I'm thinking of this, for the Colts to get in, man, they've got to stay ahead of the Bengals and the Dolphins and the Jets. Well, the Jets, that looks fine. Bengals also lost. Dolphins, they both are just 1 win behind. Well, let's talk about those games in a minute. First, Seahawks 49ers. Seahawks I did not think they were going to win. They are now, they're both behind the Cardinals still, right? In that division, we thought the Cardinals would go out. 49ers would eventually rise to the top of that division, but the 49ers lost this last weekend, 3-point game, 20-17 against the Seahawks. Did you expect that?
I did not. And the Seahawks defense was fine, but also Brock Purdy was making some mistakes. And the game ended with Geno Smith on a really good drive, rushing in for a touchdown with on a scramble with 12 seconds left to go in the game. So that was it was an exciting finish. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba looked very, very good in this game. Like, he was catching boundary passes. He was catching stuff over the middle. As Tyler Lockett gets older and can't be necessarily that second complementary receiver to DK Metcalf, having JSN step up like that, and he's stepped up kind of these last 2 or 3 games for Seattle to be a major part of their offense. It's going to be dangerous for whoever ends up being the quarterback long term for Seattle. Geno Smith, whether I don't know how many years he'll have here, or if it's a quarterback that they draft in the future. But yeah, it was a good showing by them. And like you said, the Cardinals still on top of the NFC West. They're 6-4, and then the other 3 teams are all 5-5. So that's a tight race.
It is, like I said before, we got the NFC North is the strongest right now overall, even with the Bears falling off a little bit. But this one is the most precise. It may not be the most accurate. Yeah. They're like right grouped together, and they've been like this for weeks. And it just seems like nobody can quite pull ahead. The Cardinals always have one game on everybody, and they just all keep moving up. It's got to change, because soon they're going to start playing each other more. I mean, I guess we just had Seahawks versus 49ers, but right now it's still anybody's division. Any of those teams could win that one extra game and move ahead of the Cardinals, but right now the Cardinals have it. So good job, Cardinals. Let's see. We had Bills beating the Chiefs. That was a big one. Bills beating the Chiefs 30-21. That was probably the biggest game of the weekend, and it was on the afternoon game instead of the Sunday night game. I have no idea why, but Bills pulled that one off, and I for one, I'm glad. Josh Allen, good job.
Yeah, he played well, and 4th and 2, late in the game, up by 2. Instead of kicking the field goal and still giving Patrick Mahomes a chance, they go for the risk, and Josh Allen just runs it in for a touchdown from like 25 yards out. So that was like the atmosphere, and I know it technically wasn't a night game, but because of the daylight savings time and everything, now like it was dark most of the game, so it kind of still has that kind of like feel to it, and everybody was watching it probably anyway. So yeah, it was just a incredible atmosphere there, and like it kind of like really excites you for the postseason. It's like a good appetizer for that, because those are the types of atmospheres that we get once the playoffs come around, whether it is another Bills or Chiefs game or whoever it is in a certain matchup. It's just that exciting brand of football where every play, it seems like everything was hanging on it. That's what that Chiefs and Bills game felt like, even though it was just a Week 11 regular season game.
Right, and they could be fighting for the number 1 seed already. We don't know. They're who else in the AFC? We got the Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, Steelers could jump in there and try and do something, but otherwise it's those two teams right now. And of course, Chiefs being undefeated up until this last week, and that was a special layer on that game for both teams, because the Bills want to be the ones to break that, and the Chiefs are like secretly thinking, okay, we've won Super Bowls, but we've never had an undefeated season. So they were probably like, even if they would never admit it, they're looking that way.
Yeah, for sure.
That's off the table now. So it was a good game, and it was fun to have that one in the middle of the season, like you said, giving us that kind of preview of what's coming when we get to playoffs. The next game, Chargers beat the Bengals. I think in my mind, I had this flipped again. We talked about how like that NFC West, everybody just kind of keeps winning and staying in step with one another. I did not expect the Chargers to win this one. Oh wait, they're not in the NFC West. They're in the AFC. They're with the Chiefs, but still, I didn't expect them to win this game. And they did against the Bengals, who I keep thinking are gonna kind of catch gear and take off here toward the end of the year, but they keep losing somehow, and they did again.
It was a fun game to watch if you like quarterbacks, because Justin Herbert put on a clinic in the first half. Mm-hmm. Joe Burrow put on a clinic in the second half. Like it wasn't like a one team takes the lead, the other team. It wasn't like they were both dueling back and forth. It was a tale of two halves where the Chargers dominated the first half and got out to a 27-6 lead. And then Joe Burrow led the comeback. And then both offenses kind of stagnated for the last half of the fourth quarter until the Chargers were able to run away with it. Evan McPherson does miss 2 kicks in this game. In the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter for the Cincinnati Bengals, that would have given them when it was tied, that would have given them the lead each time. And you're probably not playing a soft defense on that J.K. Dobbins touchdown run. So that changes everything if those field goals are made, but they were not. The Bengals defense folded, and the Chargers score with like 15 seconds left. Burrow did throw a Hail Mary to T. Higgins that got into his hands. But unfortunately, there was a safety that was like his arms were extended, so the safety saw that, could go like just right for his arms. So after it hit his hands, the arms kind of got jerked away, and it was a little bit tougher for him to haul in. But it was there for them for a split second. But yeah, the Chargers look really good. We're just looking at some of the games this last week. It was a lucky day to get Burrow versus Herbert, Allen versus Mahomes, Packers versus Bears, Ravens versus Steelers.
Yeah.
Like Commanders versus Eagles was on Thursday, I guess, but like it was a premier. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this next game was not one of the premier ones. That's where the Dallas Cowboys came in and once again proved that even their defense is not going to be enough. Houston Texans beat Dallas. Dallas is really stinking it up this year. Houston maintained their, the Colts won, but Houston won. So we didn't catch up to them at all in the AFC South. But then you've got the Dallas Cowboys, 3 wins. That's not what anybody was hoping for. And I know Dak Prescott's been injured, but yeah, Dallas. Boo.
Yeah. Cooper Rush looked very, very bad. And Daniil Hunter for the Texans looked very, very good. Just continuing to bring pressure into the backfield for the Texans. CJ Stroud up and down a little bit. He threw an interception early on a pass that was either he wasn't on the same page with Nico Collins and was expecting him to go up the seam a little bit more, or he just missed and threw it behind him on a slant. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he did finally kind of start to settle down a little bit, and led these more methodical drives where he just had to kind of complete these shorter passes. I still think there's something broken a little bit with the Houston's offense, but they at least got a chance to make it look good against Dallas. And yeah, even the defense right now for the Cowboys, after they played well the week before, it did not look good against Houston.
So I would have liked to have seen Houston lose. They didn't. That wrapped up that week. As we head into this next week, are there any good games? We just talked about how many premier games there were in this last week. From my look over this next week, I feel like it's almost a dearth of that this week. Looking for what might be the most exciting game, I could come up with maybe 2. What about you? What do you think is going to be the game that you're like, or the couple games that you're like, man, these are the ones I want to watch?
Well, there's only one game that's going to feature 2 teams with the winning record playing against each other.
Is that Monday?
That's going to be Monday night, the Ravens and the Chargers. There's like a couple of like 500 teams against a team with the winning team, like in that late afternoon window. But no game where 2 winning teams are playing against one another. A game that I am interested in seeing, like my marquee would be the 49ers Packers, because there's like like we've talked about the 49ers Cowboys sort of rivalry. There's also like that rivalry in the NFC with the 49ers Packers, where they were also in the 90s dueling it out for NFC title games, and now into the 2010s, like the whole narrative that, the Packers can't beat the 49ers in the playoffs, whereas in the past it was Steve Young can't beat the Packers in the playoffs. And now it's both teams with like 49ers aren't in playoff position, but can, get themselves into better playoff position right now with a win. The Packers can improve their playoff position with a victory as well. So like it's a big game for both of these 2 teams. It's at Lambeau Field. It's Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, a lot of star power on each side of the football. That is the game that I'm really looking forward to.
So if Seattle beats Arizona and San Francisco beats Green Bay, all 3 of them are going to have the same record. As a matter of fact, you could just say, who's the 4th in that one? Is that the
Rams?
If the Rams beat Philadelphia, they could all have the same record. It could be straight down the row.
6-5.
Now, do I think that the Rams will beat the Eagles? I don't think they will. I think they could. But man, Saquon Barkley and the Eagles have been looking better and better. But I definitely can see Seattle beating Arizona, and I can see San Francisco beating Green Bay. Although at this point, I think Green Bay is the better looking team, the better team overall. But of course, Christian McCaffrey is still getting back in and knocking the rust off, and maybe they can scheme something up. These 2 teams have seen each other so many times, but you picked the exact 2 same games I did. Monday night is kind of the game I think, okay, that one's the one that might be the best one to watch, but I really want to watch what's going on with San Francisco and Green Bay. You look at all the other games in here, not that exciting. Even if it's a team I like, they're playing against a team that's so bad, it's like, who cares? Maybe New England, Miami might be a game to watch, as that's a divisional game and Drake May's like making strides. Miami's trying to come back. Maybe that's something. I'm obviously going to watch Detroit, Indy, but that's probably not going to be to my liking. Just being honest there. And who cares about most of these other games?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you'll watch Minnesota and the Bears because you want to keep that position that you're in, especially with the Packers and the Lions both continuing to win, and you want to stay up with that. And to do that, you've got to beat the Bears. And so That one will be a big one for us. But like as far as like expectation, I think the expectation is Minnesota's going to win that one, and I don't want to jinx that for you, but
they have tough times at Soldier Field. And Caleb Williams has looked better, but I think I'll still lean Vikings for that game. But I understand completely what you're saying. Usually I'm like kind of double focused on both Red Zone on my phone and then the Vikings game on the big screen. But I think I'll like be able to ignore Red Zone a lot while watching the Vikings game, because like the late window, pretty solid. Like we said, the early window, very
so
either lopsided or bad teams playing each other. So
yeah,
there won't be a lot to look for.
Yep. So this is the 1 week where I would like to see Tennessee win. Tennessee beat Houston. That'd be all right. And if Indy could somehow beat Detroit, you can sit and construct anything in your head if you think long enough to try and get your team where they belong. But that's what it's going to have to take. And I don't foresee either one of those happening. I do think Houston will win. I do think Indy will lose. And I think we're going to like pull back, and it's going to be tough for us to even like sniff that 7th seed. But we're still going to be fighting for it because there's enough other bad teams in the AFC. So let's just keep them in mind too. Anything else before we finish up here today, or is that good?
Hey, that sounds like a wrap. Let's go Colts. Get those 3 Hall of Famers in. Get a win over the Lions, and as always, Skol Vikings.
That's right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this rendition of Football Fandemic. We'll see you all next time. Bye now.